Hi, I'm Sharon Pederson, and I'm here to share with you some of the tricks that I've learned over the years to make quilting easier, especially for beginners. And one of the things I discovered was that beginning quilters, including myself when I was a beginner, had great difficulty cutting a square out of a strip of fabric. So let's see how easy it is. First, you have to have your fabric folded on the straight of grain, and I have tidied up this edge here. So the next step is to get out my square ruler, and I think this is an essential tool for all quilters. It is a 12.5-inch square. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend that I need 4 or 5 5-inch squares. So the first thing I'll do is I'll line up the cut edge of my fabric with the 5-inch mark on my ruler. So place the 5-inch mark on the ruler on that lovely straight edge that you have here. And as a sort of insurance policy, I also make sure that one of these straight lines on my ruler is lined up with the straight grain fold here. So I'm going to slide the ruler up there just to make sure. Okay, everything looks perfect. I have the 5-inch mark of my ruler on that lovely cut edge. So now I'm going to cut a 5-inch strip. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut 5-inch squares out of this, but I don't want the selvage in there. So the first thing I'll do is I'll cut the selvage off. You don't want to end up with 1/2 inch of white fabric on the edge of your quilt block. So again, I always use one of these lines on my ruler to line up the edge here so that I have a perfect 90-degree angle. So we'll get rid of the selvage, except I just bumped it, so we'll tidy it up again here. Get rid of the selvage. Now, I want to cut 5-inch squares, and one way of doing it, of course, is just start with the 5-inch mark on here. And of course, this is a point where if you wanted to, you could choose a smaller ruler. But let's just be practical and continue with the one we have here. So I'm going to line up one of the lines on the ruler with this straight edge, and I'm going to cut my 5-inch squares. Now, I only need 4, let's pretend. So I have 2, because this is a folded piece of fabric, isn't it? So again, I'm lining up the 5-inch mark on my ruler, making sure this is lined up with the straight edge, and away I go, and ta-da! There are my 4 5-inch squares. But what if you only need 2 and you want bigger squares? So let's see how easy it is to do that. So here again is my fabric. I have folded it 4 times. So I have 4 layers, but I only need 2 squares. And what if they're quite a bit bigger? So what I'm going to do first is open my fabric up. So let's pretend this time I need 2 8-inch squares. Now we know this is a straight line, okay? We know that this has been cut perfectly. We also know that we have to get rid of that selvage, don't we? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my ruler with the 8-inch mark on this line down here, but I'm going to make sure that the 8-inch mark here is inside the selvage. I do not want that selvage. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm cutting this 8 inches by 9 inches. All right? Sounds confusing, but stay with me. It's pretty simple. All right, so our first cuts are these 2 sides here, and we'll move this out of the way. So I know that this is a perfect 8 inches, but we know this is more because I didn't want that selvage in my square. So we'll turn it a 1/4 turn. Now I'm going to line up the 8-inch mark with the cut edge that I've just cut. This is perfectly lined up here at the bottom, and I will get rid of that selvage, and ta-da! 2 perfect 8-inch squares. Hope you enjoyed that.